My name is Tyler, and what I'm about to share changed my life forever. 2 years ago, I was in love with a woman I thought was my future. I gave her my time, my loyalty, and my heart. But in just one night, everything I believed about our relationship came crashing down. Back then, I thought that if you care about someone and treated them right, they would do the same for you. But life has a way of proving you wrong. The woman I loved made a choice that showed me exactly where I stood in her life. And it wasn't where I thought. Stick around because by the end of this, you'll understand why some people don't deserve second chances. I've always been a quiet type, someone who values deep connections. Jenny, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. She had this energy that could light up a room. People were drawn to her. I liked that about her. I liked how different we were. I thought it balanced us out. She was a spark, and I was a steady flame. I had opportunities to leave our city, better job offers, chances to build a great future. But I stayed for her because I loved her. I thought we were working toward the same future. I imagined a life together, a home, maybe even kids. I was all in, and I truly believed she was too. But I was wrong. That realization hit me hard on what should have been one of the happiest nights of my life. It was Jenny's birthday, our relationship anniversary, and the night I planned to propose. Everything was set, reservations at a nice restaurant, a small private table. I had rehearsed my words 1,000 times, imagining how she would smile, maybe even tear up a little as I slid the ring onto her finger. I was nervous but excited. This was supposed to be our moment. At the last minute, she decided to ditch our anniversary dinner for a wild party with her high-status friends. No discussion, no apology, just a casual, "Oh, I'll make it up to you. We could do dinner another day." When I called her, hoping she'd change her mind, she brushed me off like I was making a big deal out of nothing. "You're overreacting," she said. "It's just dinner." But it wasn't just dinner. She had no idea what she was throwing away. No idea that I had a ring in my pocket, ready to give her everything. And in that moment, something inside me broke. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, tried to understand how someone I loved so much could make me feel so invisible. I had given her my heart, and she had chosen a party over me. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy feeling in my chest. I had cried myself to sleep the night before, but deep down, I still held on to some small, ridiculous hope that Jenny would realize what she had done and try to make things right. Maybe she'd call or text something, but the hours passed and nothing came. I checked my phone a few times, but by the time the sun started setting, it was clear if she cared, she would have reached out. If she had even an ounce of regret, she would have said something, but she didn't, and that silence told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for a woman who clearly didn't value me. So I made a decision right then and there. I was done. I grabbed my phone, found her number, and deleted it. Then I blocked her on every social media platform. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, gone. I erased every picture, every message thread, every trace of her. If she wasn't willing to make me a priority, then she wasn't going to have access to me anymore. I wasn't going to leave the door open for her to waltz back in whenever she felt like it. With Jenny out of the picture, I had to face another truth. I had nothing keeping me here anymore. I had turned down job opportunities in the past because I didn't want to leave her behind. But now, staying felt pointless. There was nothing left for me in this city. I wasn't even going to wait for another offer to come through. I told myself, when I get there, opportunities will come. I wasn't going to let life happen to me anymore. I was going to take control. That night, I sat my parents down and told them everything. I told them how I had planned to propose, how I had spent weeks imagining our future. Then I told them how she threw it all away for one night of partying. My mom looked heartbroken for me. My dad didn't say much, but I could tell he was disappointed, not in me, but in the way Jenny had treated me. They supported my decision to leave. They knew I needed a fresh start. But when they asked where I was going, I kept the details vague. I didn't want Jenny showing up later with some half-hearted apology, trying to pull me back in. I needed a clean break. The next morning, I packed my bags and walked out of that house with no intention of ever looking back. I reached out to an old schoolmate, Daniel, who had moved to a bigger city a few years ago. We hadn't talked in a long time, but when I explained my situation, he didn't hesitate to help. "Come crash at my place for a while," he said. And just like that, I had a place to land. When I got there, I barely spoke about what had happened. Daniel could tell I was going through something, but he didn't press. I was grateful for that. The last thing I wanted was to rehash the past. I just wanted to drown myself in work and forget everything. And that's exactly what I did. I took on every job I could find, day shifts, night shifts, anything that kept me busy. I wasn't picky. I worked in warehouses, handled deliveries, even did some freelance tech work when I could. My body was exhausted, but my mind was too numb to care. I refused to check social media. I refused to wonder what Jenny was doing. I refused to even say her name in my own head. Relationships? Forget it. I didn't want to hear about love, dating, or anything that involved emotions. My only focus was me, making money, securing my future, and becoming someone who would never be left behind again. I had always been responsible with money, but now I took it to the next level. Every dollar I made was split into two categories: investing in myself and investing in the stock market. I learned everything I could about finances, watched videos, read books, and studied how to make my money work for me. Slowly, I started seeing results. After a few months, I was able to move into my own place. It wasn't anything fancy, just a small apartment, but it was mine. No more crashing on couches. 2 years went by in a blur. The pain that had once consumed me no longer controlled my life. Looking back, I realized Jenny had actually done me a favor. If she hadn't walked away that night, I might never have walked toward a life I was meant to have. One day at the mall, I wasn't expecting to run into anyone from my past, let alone someone connected to Jenny. I was just there to pick up a few things. But as I turned the corner near the food court, I saw a familiar face. At first, it didn't register. Then it hit me. It was Eve, Jenny's old friend. My first instinct was hesitation. The last time I had heard Eve's name was when Jenny accused her of trying to steal me. Back then, I trusted Jenny, so I naturally believed her. I even thought Eve was a snake for trying to mess with our relationship. But standing there now, looking at her, she didn't seem like someone who had done anything wrong. She seemed friendly, and from the way she reacted when she saw me, I could tell she wasn't holding on to any bad blood. She smiled, a little surprised. "Wow, Tyler, I never expected to see you here." I nodded, still processing the situation. "Yeah, it's been a while." For a moment, neither of us knew how to act. We had never really spoken much back then, because, well, Jenny had made sure of that. After a brief, awkward pause, Eve broke the tension. "Do you have time to catch up over coffee?" I figured, why not? At worst, it would be an uncomfortable conversation. At best, I might get some clarity on things I had never really questioned before. So we sat down at a small cafe in the mall. And that's when I learned the truth. Eve didn't dance around it. She came right out and said it. "I always felt like Jenny didn't appreciate you. That's why we stopped being friends." That threw me off. That was not the story Jenny had told me. When I asked Eve what she meant, she explained everything. Everything. Apparently, she had confronted Jenny about the way she treated me, how she was selfish in our relationship, how she didn't seem to value my time or my feelings. But instead of listening, Jenny flipped the situation and accused Eve of trying to take me for herself. That accusation spread through their friend group, and before Eve could even defend herself, Jenny had already turned everyone against her. The more Eve talked, the more everything started clicking in my head. It all made sense. Jenny had lied to me. She had painted herself as a victim and made Eve look like the bad guy. And I had fallen for it, blindly. For a long time, I had convinced myself that what she was seeing. Eve, unaware of the tension in the air, glanced between us, her smile fading slightly as she picked up on the unease. "Hey, everything okay?" she asked, shifting the container in her hands. Jenny's face twisted, a mix of shock, anger, and something else. Something bitter. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "You." I exhaled slowly, keeping my expression unreadable. "Yeah, I said simply. Jenny turned back to me, her tears still fresh, but her tone now sharp. So, this is why you won't even hear me out? You just replaced me? I didn't flinch. I didn't react. Because the truth was, there was nothing left to say. I shook my head. No, Jenny, you lost me, and I moved on. Her breath shuddered as she tried to find the right words, but there weren't any. Whatever she had come here hoping for, pity, a second chance, maybe even an argument, it wasn't going to happen. I had made my peace a long time ago. Without another word, I stepped aside, letting Eve walk past me into the apartment. The warmth of her presence filled the space almost immediately, a quiet reassurance that I was exactly where I was meant to be. Jenny stood there for a few seconds longer, her lips parted as if she wanted to say something. But she didn't. She just turned and walked away. And I closed the door. I could practically hear the gears turning in Jenny's head as she pieced everything together. I didn't hesitate. I stepped forward, pulled Eve into a hug, and kissed her on the cheek. "Welcome," I said, my voice steady. Eve smiled, completely unfazed by Jenny's presence. That was the thing about Eve. She never had to try too hard. And that was enough. Jenny took a shaky step back, her face twisting into something between heartbreak and humiliation. Without another word, I took Eve's hand, stepped inside, and shut the door behind us, locking it. I didn't check the peephole to see if Jenny was still there. I didn't wait to hear her footsteps fade. I was done. She had made her choice 2 years ago. Now it was my turn. Looking back, I realized that pain could be the best teacher. At the time, when Jenny chose that party over me, it felt like my world had collapsed. I questioned everything, whether I had been too clingy, too demanding, or just not enough for her. But the truth? I was never the problem. She just didn't value me the way I valued her. That night, as I lay in bed with my chest feeling like it was caving in, I had no idea that the best decision I would ever make was just around the corner. Walking away from her was the hardest thing I ever did, but it was also the thing that saved me. And life is a funny way of balancing things out, doesn't it? After I moved, I focused on myself. I worked hard, invested wisely, and built a life I could be proud of. Meanwhile, I heard Jenny jumped into another relationship almost immediately. And not just any relationship. She went for a guy who fit her lifestyle perfectly. A party guy. The type who lived for the fast life, just like she did. At first, I bet it seemed like she had it all. The fun, the excitement, the thrill of being with someone who kept the party going. But then reality hit. That guy wasn't just a party animal. He was an abusive one. He drank too much, and when he did, he turned violent. Their relationship was nothing but chaos. Yelling, fights, drama. It was a complete mess. Eventually, it all fell apart. And when there was nothing left, that's when she showed up at my door, crying, begging for forgiveness. But by then, it was too late. I had moved on. I had grown. And most importantly, I had learned a crucial lesson. Real love doesn't need to be forced. If someone truly wants to be in your life, they'll act like it. They won't treat you like an afterthought or make you compete for their attention. So now I want to hear from you. What do you think? Was I too harsh, or did she deserve it? If someone betrayed your trust like that and then came crawling back, what would you do? Have you ever been taken for granted, only for them to realize your worth when it was too late? Let me know in the comments.